What's up, everybody? Nick Dwyer back for the 10th inning with another episode of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's episode, we saw Cecil Fielder and Prince Fielder, after Prince hit his 300th home run, become only the second father-son duo to both hit 300 home runs. We don't have anything like that today, but we do have some more no-hitters to talk about. We have a lot of tennis championships, both Wimbledon and the U.S. Nationals, to talk about. So before we get into it, if y'all enjoy this video, leave a like on it. If you're new to the channel, want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. This Day in Sports History. We start out today in 1884, and the Chicago White Stockings pitcher Larry Corcoran no-hits the Providence Grays in a 6-0 victory. Corcoran would become the first pitcher to have not one, not two, but 3 no-hitters in his career. On the day, 9 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk allowed. Now we move up to 1890, and George Dixon becomes the first black boxing champion. He would not be the first heavyweight boxing champion. He would actually win the bantamweight championship by defeating Nunk Wallace in 19 rounds. 1 year later, we start our tennis trend now. At the U.S. National Championships on the women's side, Mabel Cahill defeated defending champion Ellen Roosevelt 6-4, 6-1, 4-6, 6-3 in 4 sets to win the first of 2 straight titles and 2 overall. Now we move up to the 1898 Wimbledon women's final and men's final. On the women's side, Charlotte Cooper defeated Louisa Martin 6-4, 6-4 in straight sets to win her 3rd Wimbledon singles championship of 5 overall. On the men's side, defending champion R.F. Doherty defeated his younger brother Lawrence Doherty 6-3, 6-3, 2-6, 5-7, 6-1 in 5 sets to win the 2nd of 4 straight titles. 1 year later, at the 1899 Wimbledon women's finals, Blanche Bingley Hilliard defeated Charlotte Cooper 6-2, 6-3 in straight sets to win the 5th of 6 Wimbledon championships and 6 Grand Slam titles. Now we move up to the 20th century, but we stay with tennis. In 1902 at the U.S. National Championships, on the women's side, Marion Jones would win her 2nd U.S. singles title, defeating Elizabeth Moore 6-1, 1-0. The second set came when the defending champion, Moore, had to retire because she was feeling flu-like symptoms and had to withdraw from the match. Therefore, Jones would get the championship. 1 year later, though, in 1903, right back to the U.S. National Championships, these two were at it once again. This time, defending champion Marion Jones would be defeated by Elizabeth Moore 7-5, 8-6 in straight sets. This would be Moore's 3rd of 4 U.S. singles titles in her career and 4 majors. 1 year later in 1904, we move across the pond, but we stay with tennis. At the Wimbledon men's tennis final, Lawrence Doherty wins his 3rd consecutive of 5 Wimbledon singles crown, defeating Frank Risley for the 2nd straight year 6-1, 7-5, 8-6 in straight sets. 4 years later in 1908 at the U.S. National Championship on the women's side, Maud Barger-Wallach defeated defending champion Evelyn Sears 6-3, 1-6, 6-3 for her only major title in her career. 1 year later in 1909, at the U.S. National Championship on the women's side, Hazel Hotchkiss Whiteman defeated defending champion Maud Barger-Wallach 6-0, 6-1 in straight sets for the first of 3 straight U.S. singles titles and 4 overall. There was a lot of tennis to get into right there. Now we will take a break. Now we go to 1914 and we go to boxing. Jack Johnson would defend his heavyweight title, defeating Frank Moran in 20 rounds. This would be the 8th defense of the title for Johnson. 10 years later, in 1924 at the British Open, Walter Hagen would win his 2nd Open championship, 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Ernest Whitcomb. This would be the 5th of 11 overall majors for Hagen. We stay with golf, but we go to team golf now at the Ryder Cup in 1931 and 1933. In 1931, Walter Hagen would captain his 2nd victorious American team as the United States would win 9-3. After day 1, the U.S. was up 3-1, and day 2, they would get a 6-2 lead, combining for a 9-3 victory for the United States. In what would be only the 3rd edition of the Ryder Cup, the USA would take a 2-1 lead in the Cup. That would change though 2 years later in 1933. Great Britain would defeat the United States 6.5 to 5.5. This would mark Great Britain's last victory in the Ryder Cup until 1957. At this point, they would be 2-2. After day 1, Great Britain was up 2.5 to 1.5, so 1 point ahead. And then day 2, the score was tied 4-4. Therefore, Great Britain won because of that day 1 surge. Now we move up 3 years back to singles golf in 1936 at the British Open. Alf Padkamp, with a score of 9 under, won his only major title, 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Jimmy Adams. 14 years later in 1950 at the PGA Championship, Chandler Harper won his only major title, defeating Harry Williams Jr. 4-3 in the final. Now we stick with golf, but we go to women's golf in 1959 at the US Open. Mickey Wright, with a score of 7 over, successfully defends her Open title, 2 strokes ahead of runner-up Louise Suggs. This would be the third of 13 overall majors for Wright. 12 years later in 1971 at the US Women's Open, Joanne Carner, who had an even par over the 4 rounds, won 7 strokes ahead of runner-up Kathy Whitworth. So we've had a lot of golf, a lot of tennis to talk about. Let's switch it up a little. Let's go to Major League Baseball. In 1980, we have a no-hitter alert from Dodgers pitcher Jerry Royce as he no-hit the San Francisco Giants in an 8-0 victory. On the day, Royce, 9 innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, 0 walks, but 1 error by the team, and this error came in the first inning before he or the team really knew, wow, I have a perfect game going, so that ruined it right there. Still bet he's glad he got the no-hitter, but I bet whoever made that error wasn't very happy. 4 years later, at the 1984 UEFA European Championship in football, France defeated Spain 2-0 to get their very first title. Both of the goals for France came in the second half, and Michel Platini opened up the scoring in the 57th minute for France. Then in the 90th minute, Bruno Bellone scored once again to give France a 2-0 lead, and they would hold on to it, getting the 2-0 victory for their first title. 1 year later in 1985, we're back to Wimbledon, back to tennis. An American tennis player, Ann White, would shock Wimbledon by wearing a white one-piece, a cat suit, in the first round matchup against Pam Shriver. She would end up wearing, I'll say, a quote, regular outfit after the rain delay, but it still shocked the Wimbledon crowd. White would go on to lose to Shriver though. 3 years later, we have one of the hardest hitters in all of boxing history. 1988, Mike Tyson would knock out Michael Spinks in 91 seconds, so 1 minute and 31 seconds into the fight, to retain the heavyweight titles and be, quote, the true heavyweight champion. As both of these men were seen by different people as the heavyweight champion, I think we learned who the true heavyweight was when Tyson knocked him out 1 minute and 31 seconds into the fight. 4 years later in 1992, we go back to Wimbledon, and in the third round, the 193rd ranked player, Andrei Olhovsky, defeated the 1 seed Jim Courier 6-4, 4-6, 6-4 in 3 sets, in one of the biggest upsets in Wimbledon history. 1 year later in 1993, the Senior Players Championship on the men's side, Jim Colbert won his only career major, 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Raymond Floyd. Now we have a bit of a funny one, bit of a sad one, depending on how you look at it. In 1993, Major League Baseball, the New York Mets pitcher Anthony Young loses a record 24th straight game. This would come in a loss to the St. Louis Cardinals, and his record wouldn't stop there. He would end up losing 27 straight games in his career, a record that will most likely never be broken, and definitely a record that no one wants to break. Now we go back to golf in 1999, first at the LPGA Championship. Julie Inkster, with a score of 16 under, shoots a final round 65 to win 4 strokes ahead of runner-up Liselott Newman to complete her career Grand Slam for Inkster. Also in 99, at the Senior Players Championship on the men's side, Hale Irwin, with a score of 21 under, won his 5th of 7 Champions Tour majors, 7 strokes ahead of runner-up Graham Marsh. Finally in 2010, at the LPGA Championship, Christy Kerr, with a score of 19 under, would take her second major title, 12 strokes ahead of runner-up Song Hee Kim. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. I do apologize if there was too much tennis, too much golf, if that's not your thing. But the people who do enjoy that, I bet they love this episode. I do apologize if I forgot anything, I apologize if I mispronounced any names. But I will see you all tomorrow. For Nick O'Dwyer and the 10th inning, stay safe, everybody. See ya.